Hi, I'm Suzy Badaracco, President of Culinary Tides. We are a fractional foresight and trends intelligence team for the food and beverage and neighboring industries. This presentation is a condensed version of the full session I delivered at the Craft Brewers Conference in April of 2025. In this shortened format, I'll walk you through the key insights and takeaways we covered so you can quickly get up to speed on trends that matter the most. If you'd like access to the full deck, there will be a QR code at the end of the presentation where you can request a copy. Or if you just want to learn more, feel free to reach out so we can keep the conversation going. So let's go ahead and get started with Beyond Beer, Decoding Consumer Preferences for Alcohol and Non-Alcohol Beverages. First, we're going to talk about add-ins and preps, something not everybody thinks about when it comes to beverage. So what are they communicating? We're going to look at the top 5 categories: botanicals and herbs, spices and heat, functional, infusions, and also clarifications and fat washing. So why botanicals and herbs? Think of ingredients like lavender, rosemary, basil, hibiscus, even chamomile. What they're doing is they're adding depth, aroma, and definitely a sophisticated twist. With spices and heat, think of things like cinnamon, ginger, black pepper, chili. It creates warmth, contrast, and depth. Also appeals to that adventurous palate. With functional, now we're turning more towards adaptogens, even CBD, nootropics, and collagen. And you're really catering to the wellness conscious consumers looking for benefit beyond just flavor. And with infusions and macerations, what we're doing is soaking herbs, fruits, or spices in liquid that extract some of the deep flavors over time. So think of infused spirits, botanical waters, and even cold brew teas. And with clarifications and fat washing, so you're filtering out solids for a refined drink, or you're infusing fats like butter or coconut oil to add body and richness. So think of clarified cocktails or even fat washed whiskeys. I'm going to introduce you to affinity scales, and we're going to look at them through the lens of beverage preps. So this is how an affinity scale works. If something is on the high end of the affinity scale, this is through the consumer lens. It means it's something that's easy to understand, easy to access, very approachable, maybe familiar, and definitely affordable. If it's on the low end, it does not mean it's bad. It means it might be a little difficult to understand or hard to get a hold of. It might be a new kid on the block as far as trends, and it might be something that's higher cost. So let's look at the high end of the scale first. You've got cocktails for a crowd or batching, textures, you've got beverage kits, miniature beverages, sparkling, visually ready beverages. So if you're looking for a social media hit, that's what you're going for. On the lower end, this is where you can see fat washed, you've got unique flavor combos, spice and salted rims, and I'm sure you've heard of Swicey. Well, she's got girlfriends. Swicey is sweet and spicy, but then there's Swalty, sweet and salty. Swoky is sweet and smoky. And since this deck has come out, there's also Swangy, and Swangy is sweet and tangy. So think of vinegars or lemons, any kind of citrus. Another scale is looking at beverage add-ins and mixers, but just the florals, fruit, and spices. So on the high end, you've got next-gen citrus like blood oranges, key limes, also tropicals. This is where mango sits, dragon fruit sits, warm spices like allspice, clove, cinnamon, varietal fruits. So not just pear, but what kind of pear? Apples, berries. One of my favorites here is Girl Next Door. This is blueberries, blackberries, watermelon, peach, and you also have hibiscus. So on the lower end, now you've got that next gen citrus 2. This is where yuzu, calamansi, some of the more unusual citrus comes in. Bergamot, partly because it doesn't go with everything. It's very strong personality. You've got tamarind, hot honey, and tea. Let's switch over to non-alcohol, but let's look at the drivers in particular. So low alcohol's primary driver for repeat purchase on an item is its ability to mimic the taste of the full alcohol version. Otherwise, you might kind of have one and done where the consumer is like, that was interesting, and they don't buy again. Also, low alcohol affords consumers the ability to blend in social situations. This eliminates the stress of standing out. They don't want the questions like, why aren't you drinking? What's going on? How are you okay? This gets them out of that conversation. And consumers are more often likely to switch to a beverage that is naturally low in alcohol, not to a low alcohol version of the original drink. So let's say you're drinking wine. Wine drinkers are more likely to, instead of going from wine, which might be 13% alcohol, and dropping down to like 9%, it's not a big enough drop. So what they're doing is they're dropping all the way down to 5% with maybe a hard soda, hard cider, or beer, for example. Low alcohol is most sought out by Gen Z and millennials. And remember, those two generations are the closest to being born into CBD being legal. And so it's not that they're just not partaking, they just have more selections. Nielsen is the one that declared low alcohol sparkling wine is actually projected to grow quite a bit. Cometric also looked at low alcohol products were most often discussed in relationship to social events and gatherings. Again, that not wanting to stand out. And then YouGov, the percent of young adults choosing low or no alcohol options has risen just year over year from 31 to 44%. Now let's go switch over to alcohol drivers. So there are a handful of categories that are changing personalities. Craft beer, hard seltzer, ready-to-drink cocktails, whiskey and other brown spirits, and wine. So with craft beer, what we're seeing is more experimental and hybrid brews, so unexpected ingredients like tea, spice, botanicals going into craft beer. So hybrid blends, beer with wine, cocktails, and functional ingredients as well. With hard seltzer, you're really seeing it going more premium and purpose driven. So premium, so high quality ingredients, craft flavors, but also functional beverages, a different way it could go with probiotics and adaptogens, even electrolytes. With ready to drinks, what they're doing is going more elevated, more bar quality creations. So high-end bar quality formulations with complex flavors, top shelf spirits, and craft presentation. So again, you're probably seeing several alcohol companies moving into the RTD space. Whiskeys and brown spirits, we're really seeing fresh finishes. So wine barrel aging, smoky flavors, flavor infusions. And bourbon and rye are also crossing into cocktails and ready to drink category. With wine, it's really more about being playful and disruptive. So embracing unconventional formats like cans, pouches, spritzers, but also playful branding and experimental blends. So let's look at how we're navigating the future. This is a pathway analysis. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to tell you the inspiration and then how that translates and what the pathway is to make this happen. So if you're looking at low and no alcohol, the inspiration is really consumers looking for it because of social events. It might be their weight or they want to keep their wits about them, so cognitive function. The pathway is with these products is communicating to the consumer what is the benefit of the product and making them feel in control of themselves by purchasing this product. And that translates into non-alcohol beer, mocktails, hard sodas, ciders, infused waters, things that are functional or fermented, and actually the ready-to-drink category. With craft beverages, it's really more about authenticity, social connection, and discovery. So here you want to give it a strong story or voice, but also it's a reward. Now you've got craft beer and ciders, hyper local, unconventional brewing techniques, unexpected elements being added in, and then hybrids and also functional ingredients. With cocktail, definitely the comeback of secret or LTOs. Travel is a big influence on cocktails, and same with escape. I'm just escaping my life. So here you want, again, strong story or voice, but also in a sense, it's a reward. Now you've got infused spirits, spicy and bitter, so extremes on the palate, heritage spirits, sustainable items, unexpected elements, and ready to drink shows up here as well. So some final thoughts. Consumers value authenticity, convenience, and a sense of adventure in their beverage choices. So they're not looking for comfort. Elevated experiences kind of make up the backbone of many trends. It doesn't mean it always costs more, though. Beverage add-ins and mixers, think of them as the party dress to the drink. And don't forget cross-tying or layering trends within a concept will lengthen its life cycle. So you want to know the birth and life cycle of a trend prior to deciding to recommend or enter it, so you will know how to navigate it. And spend more time researching a trend's personality and trajectory than worrying about what your competitors are doing. After all, they may be idiots. And so that's a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like a copy of the full version of this presentation, just scan the QR code on the screen. It'll take you to a quick request form. And if you have any questions or just want to chat more about what we covered, absolutely feel free to reach out using any of the contact info here. I would love to connect. Thanks so much.